That's just great, maths. No license, no job. Now what? Good evening, everyone. As usual, you have Skinny E Media, Mark, and then Citizen Snips, Rob Bavister. But we're going to be doing hello there. We're going to be doing something a little bit different this time. Instead of our usual discussions about whether Toy Story should have been a PG or if Fight Club being 15 was the worst thing ever, we're going to be talking about upcoming electoral issues and politics as we see fit. This is a year that could change everything. And with everything that's going on right now, be it in Ukraine, Gaza, Israel, hell, even the UK and the United States, things could get really ugly really fast. And so I'm replacing my cap a little bit. Instead of wearing BBFC, I'm going to be wearing instead Parliament versus Congress. And we're going to talk about the issues at stake here, partly also to promote my upcoming documentary called Wake Up and Smell the Coffee, but just because we want to try something a little bit different. This will certainly be in Rob's wheelhouse, especially because we talked about political cinema just a few weeks ago. So as always, I'll sort of let you start off with things, Rob, as far as what we have in stake, because we do have an election that's coming up next month in the UK. It all came out so suddenly, and everyone's sort of like, oh, they're all freaking out.
I mean, we knew it was going to be this year anyway, because they can't go 5 years without an election. We just didn't think Rishi would call it so soon. We thought he was going to stretch it out for as long as he could, because, well, if you've seen the polls, you've seen the polls, right? I mean, I don't know, not much more needs to be said really there, does it?
I'm afraid not. So now, politically wise, we're not the typical type of Brit, especially Rob. He's very left wing. Me, I'm left, but I seem a bit conservative at places. But still, very likely, and I'm going to put a bet on this. Rishi is not going to get re-elected. The Tories are probably not going to get re-elected in as high numbers as they did almost 5 years ago. I think that that's a safe bet, right?
Yeah, I mean, there may always be margins of errors in the polls, but there's an average 20-point gap between the two parties. No margin of error is going to cover that. So it might not be a Labour landslide like it was in 1997. I mean, some polls are predicting Labour will get more than 400 seats. Other polls less than 400. By that point, it becomes negligible. Really, it's just like clear. They're going to get clear majority. I'll be surprised if Labour doesn't get a majority. I mean, it's a phrase. Turkey voting for Christmas comes about the fact that Rishi decided to call this election, unless of course he just sees what's on the horizon and wants Labour to deal with it. Or basically, his party have pissed him off so much that this was cheaper than just firing each and every one of them individually. I don't know what's thinking there, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to make any bets on it and everything, but I mean, the gap between the two parties right now is wider in the polling is wider now than it was in 1997. Or at least it seems to be. Although to be fair, those were the polls I was looking at just the lead up to the election, so things could change. But really don't see it going any other way than a Labour majority. Don't want to jinx it, but just by looking at it, polls are very much on the level of what they were flipped as 5 years ago. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, you're not wrong. I've been noticing the same sort of data as well as far as UK election is concerned. I think much of the reason why Labour seems to be leading is likely because of economic woes, and Brexit not being as great as everyone thought it would be. It's just been
Who's
really.
this everyone?
I'm
Uh,
quite. It's quite sad. Even if I'm partly American, I'm quite sad for the state of British affairs. It may seem like, oh, everyone's going to all these shops and stuff, but there's a lot of poverty. You'll be surprised.
yeah, I'm aware of that, but well, as you can probably guess, I did vote Remain back in 2016. Then again, nearly half the electorate did anyway. The gap between Leave and Remain was pretty marginal. The polls, the public opinion regarding Brexit has shifted very much, with the support for rejoining the EU basically basically almost doubling support for staying out. So why New Labour aren't supporting rejoining, I don't know, but that could just be that's what I was going to say. That could just be them not trying to get the gammons to leave them alone. But I think because Tories were actually ahead of the polls with it, and a lot of people blamed Corbyn for like sinking Labour in the polls. Except Starmer became Labour leader in like very early 2020, and they were behind the polls and the Tories for the rest of that year. And for the majority of 2021, it's only when Partygate came out that that the polls suddenly shifted, and now ever then they started sinking. They sunk hard, hence why Boris had to resign, which were over the moon before we realised that just meant another one was going to take over and we had to deal with Ms. Truss. Well, I wonder if she'll be helped remember the future, if at all. She's like a 45-day prime minister. I mean, well, everyone's talked about the lettuce and everything, but then she had to piss off, and now we've got a Rishi. I suppose it's ironic that Tories gave us our first prime minister of colour. Well, along with the only ones that ever give us a female prime minister, or three of them, and of course he was also the youngest one we've had in like living memory. But of course, yeah, I do think of a lot of them, Rishi was probably the best of a bad bunch. But then that's damning him with faint praise. I mean, he's not going to fucking. I mean, he's had 2 years to try and sort their shit out and get them above the polls. He fucked that up. I don't see how he's going to do it the next 6 weeks, 5 weeks now. I don't think he will. But I don't know where exactly what my overall point is here. Safe to say that the Tories are fucked, and good riddance to them. 14 fucking years of it to deal with these. It's longer now than New Labour are actually in power, and I don't want to dominate this entire conversation, Mark. So I'm going to take a break and hand it back to you.
No, but you made several good points. If I try to sort of reiterate back from what you were saying, as far as well, I'll jump on the easiest one, like you said about Rishi Sunak being the first South Asian PM. There is a tendency, and I've noticed this, that if you're of a sort of marginalized group, and this goes with Maggie Thatcher because she was a woman, you're better off being part of a more conservative circle than you are a left-wing circle, because the public themselves generally tend to be quite biased at anyone who has any sort of leftist-centered views. They think, oh, you're nannying me, you're nagging, shut up. Unfortunately, that's what I learned. I mean, you should look at the way they treat Marcus Rashford and stuff when they lost the Euro Cup a few years.
God, so
Oh,
yes, I remember.
British football fan.
Yeah, I do remember. Basically, a lot of people were saying them taking the knee would cause them to fall out of the Euros early on, and then when they lost at the end, he said, "So yeah, I was right." It's like, you were right. You said they were going to fall out early, and they fell out of the Euros in the final on penalties. They lost at the last very moment. I mean, it was pretty fucking stupid, actually. But we're not here to talk about that. But yeah,
It all ties into political issues one way or another, and as far as Tory controls are concerned, there are sort of two factors that are going on here. While it's very likely they will not be re-elected, by my bet, the thing that might help them in their favour is social concerns. Usually, British voters, I've noticed from who I talked to, mostly in Kent, if you go on about immigration or wokeness or LGBT or feminism, people generally tend to change their tune a little bit. They don't like that sort of stuff. They would want to keep things the way they were, especially with the I word. You know what the I word is? We got to stop them boats.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, if people think immigration's got out of control, they're gonna take one look at the current party and just say, "Well, you haven't done anything about it." So, I don't think that would work in their favor right now, especially if, like, I was glad we did have a South Asian, trying to get a South Asian prime minister, albeit one that wasn't elected, and albeit one that is a ridiculously spoiled upper class rich cunt. And seriously, he's got more money than the king. He's like £730 million to his name. But the point is that being a person of color, all the racist gammons are probably going to abandon him for reform. And I think Nigel Farage is going to completely just siphon that away. I mean, he stayed out of the 2019 election to help Boris get in, but yeah, that's just a blow of bollocks now, isn't it? Of course, the Tories don't have Brexit now to help sway the voters anymore, especially considering most people actually are against Brexit, and it's very clear that a red wall who went blue in 2019 are going red again. I mean, hell, I live in Cardiff Central, which is basically probably one of the safest Labour seats in the country. Ironically, because my parents, where I'm originally from, live in the Cotswolds, which is probably the safest Conservative seat in the country. I mean, they've had that for over 30 years. Don't know where. I mean, obviously, I suppose one of the biggest things we can talk about is probably the issues many on the left, including yours truly, have with Keir Starmer. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
I actually will. And from a lot of the stuff that I've read from both conservative outlets like Daily Mail and Sky News, even to left wing stuff like Joe, I think that's it, or Guardian, he's not very with the Corbynistas like ourselves. I mean, in fact, I'm a little surprised that he is getting as much in the polls, but Rishi Sunak, he doesn't really appeal to the far right either. But the problem is,
I'm just going to say,
too milk toast.
Yeah, he is very milquetoast. I reckon that I'm putting it down. Not Labour are soaring in the polls, not because of anything they've done, but for what the Tories have done. They have just basically handed it to them on a silver platter, mainly with the whole Partygate thing which started it. But I think after Partygate, everyone just said enough is enough. Brexit has been a fuck up. Everyone's sick of austerity for the past 40 years. And how they handled COVID was absolutely atrocious. Of all the countries in Europe, Britain was the hardest hit by that. And we found out after time they were implementing lockdown rules on us, which I for one was happy to go with because I felt it was a necessity. Only to find out they weren't bloody abiding them, as with Partygate or with Dominic Cummings' long 200-mile drive that he took. Do you remember that?
I do. That caused quite a bit of a stir. I know it seems like it's a bit old memory now, but yes, COVID was definitely fucking a lot of things up, especially in terms of economics, because now we're paying the price for it in terms of the other I word, that is inflation. I mean, my good.
Cosy lives, as we call it.
Cosy lib? I've never heard of that phrase.
Cost of living.
Oh, COL. Okay, I know what you're talking about, but yes, cost of living and inflation crisis is probably the very thing that will help out Labour in their favour. But you are absolutely right. I think most British voters probably wouldn't care that much for Keir Starmer anyways, but they're doing it more or less as a protest type of vote against the same old story.
Well, it's like with Biden in America in 2020. No one on the left really wanted him. Obviously, everyone on the left the true left wanted Bernie Sanders, but when push came to shove, that's all they had, and it was like they didn't want another 4 years of Trump, and Trump was handling COVID so badly that was like, fuck it, let's just get Biden just so we get the alt-right chuds out. I think that's a lot of people now are throwing their lot behind Starmer, obviously we've got all the centrist people, centrist libs like Tony Robinson and all that are happy with Starmer because they didn't like Corbyn. But most of the left don't even like Starmer, and a lot of them have said, "Yeah, actually, I'm not voting for this and everything," and I'm probably going to vote for a third party. I mean, for a multitude of reasons, which can be too numerous to mention. I mean, where do you begin?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I am one of those people who will be voting third party. I did it in previous elections, including in the US because I'm a dual national. But I'm not. I'm doing it as part of a political protest of sorts. But unfortunately, that won't get you really any places, and might get you death threats because of FPTP, which they call one
Well,
attack
yeah.
in the states. But FPTP is the reason why we can't have any good things. It doesn't even benefit the far right, and I don't even like them.
Well, no, because yeah, because remember 2015 and how UKIP got screwed by it.
Exactly there. So it sort of works both ways. But FPTP is that sort of weird, necessary, unnecessary evil that exists mainly just to keep the centrist powers or sort of big tent parties in their place.
It's
Yeah,
kind of weird how it can really benefit a regional party like the SNP and everything. Because you can look at the SNP and the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats generally get more votes than the SNP, obviously because Liberal Democrats can get votes all over the UK, whereas SNP just in Scotland. But because it's based on how many constituencies you win, the SNP end up with like, I don't know, 3 times the number of seats as the Lib Dems do, or however many. Again, put case in point, I refer to the 2015 election, which is one of the stupidest elections I remember, actually, but never mind.
well, I know it was Cameron versus Miliband. People all made about a fuss that Ed Miliband looked like an Aardman character, but
And
besides,
couldn't eat a bacon sandwich normally.
I know he's Jewish, and he was quite proud of that. From
He's an
what?
atheist, though, as well.
Oh, he is. Oh,
Yeah, just like Nick Clegg.
okay. But yeah, that was not a very good year as far as I was concerned because no one likes David Cameron. He appeals to no one. Doesn't appeal to the Faragists. He certainly doesn't appeal to the Corbynistas or the Appetites.
I think that was his whole
I,
thing when he came in. That was kind of his whole thing when he came in on in 2010, though, was that he was just this moderate centrist, and he did give off an air of a moderate centrist. Yeah, even when I first saw him back in 2010, I thought, okay, he's a bit posh and everything. I don't really think too highly of that, but I suppose it can be uh, too much to snark at. When he said we're not going to do any Thatcherisms or anything, and we're not going to do any. And we're probably not going to do any Mary Whitehouse stuff. Well, it didn't seem so anyway. And even when asked if he was religious and everything, he said, "Yeah, I believe in God, but I don't have a direct line." And it was and even the Washington Post in America said he campaigned as sort of anti-Sarah Palin. I remember this from an episode of Real Time with Bill Maher back around that time, and he was sort of praising the British Conservatives as being this much more reasonable and balanced party in comparison to being a reasonable and balanced force in comparison to the American Conservatives. Of course, 14 years later, or with austerity and Brexit and the governments of Theresa May, Boris Johnson, and Liz Truss, we're just like, oh, that has not aged well. It's aged like milk.
exactly. The damage is already done, and I know it's easy to blame it all on the Tories, but there is probably hidden forces at play that even we can't even solve. I know corporate malfeasance has always been an issue, and a lot of this sort of shit sort of kickstarted with 2008 stock market crash.
Well,
I
yeah.
would,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, New Labour did sort of send us were in power when we had the stock market crash. So of course, that didn't really give me Tories much to play with. But 14 years later, they were supposed to fix this, and they just made it worse. I mean, the 2020 stock market crash made the 2008 stock market crash look like a blip. Again, one could say they couldn't have predicted COVID, but they could have handled it a bit better.
They could have, at least from what I was concerned. I mean, even the furlough scheme didn't really solve out the whole entire issue because people still had to um, find ways to support themselves. And with cost of living or inflation, that didn't quite materialize. And then everything all being cut with NHS, public services, and whatnot, that also being trickled down to other cities and the Midlands and the North being particularly hit. And I'm sure in Camry it was quite badly damaged because we know how British people, or at least Westminster, views anyone outside of the southeast as inferior. You were
There
left
was
to
a
fend
bit of,
yourself in the scraps.
I mean, fortunately, the Senate under Mark Draper did they seemed to handle seemed to do what they could with the situation, and they reasonably handled it from what I could see. I was a bit annoyed how they decided to just do another lockdown around about New Year 2021, which I didn't feel was necessary because I just had my third jab. But hey ho, COVID, for all I will know, is, well, I'm not saying it's over and everything, but certainly not as concerning as it once was. But I mean, the 14 years of this Tory government, I remember basically, I mean, a lot of people were talking about how in the 70s we were known as a sick man of Europe. Turns out, once we've attained that moniker again, and it's thanks to both a combination of austerity and Brexit. Big.
No, but this is true. I've been hearing that report even with several other sources, much to the French and the Germans, what's the word? Enjoyment that, haha, look at the Brits, they are laughing at their own
What you
misery.
mean in Germany? We say Schadenfreude.
What's Schadenfreude?
When shameful joy when you take glee in the suffering of others or the misfortune of others.
Yes, that's, yeah, pretty much the. I mean, I'm sure many people are looking at us through the EU and probably Ireland, which is still a member, but British people can live and work there under the CTA agreement. They're probably thinking to themselves, ha, look at them in their own shit. But at the same time, if we're so sick man of Europe, how can we have so much of this sort of money to make all these TV dramas about people in costumes running a manor house, or the migrants in the boats? They all want to come here more so than in France or Italy. I'll tell you that. It's just, you'd have to wonder a little bit sometimes. Either, there's no pride in being British, really, because we kind of look like the United States of Europe. What do I mean by that?
Mm.
We have the highest obesity rate, highest teen pregnancy rate, um, issues with poverty and inequality. That's greater than most European countries. English, obviously. Um, I think you know what I'm talking about there. I'm just trying to sort of put it into perspective. But does it make you feel upset to be British? I mean, I'd rather just tell people I was Welsh more so than English because you know what they think of English people.
Well, to be fair, I'm often just saying Welsh anyway. I've lived here long enough now, and of course my mum's Welsh, and I went to uni in Wales. I could just simply say I'm Welsh. That's neither here nor there right now, because I only use that term, speaking those terms when speaking to other people from the UK. When I speak to people from outside the UK, I just say I'm British because, as far as I'm concerned, that's what I
Yes,
am.
well, people don't know about the geography of the UK as much as they know, let's say, this is California, this is Texas, this is New York. Don't even get me started about Canadian geography, but that's a side point. But
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did want to mention, actually. I've been meaning to mention, but I never got round to bringing it up. I mean, only on Thursday, I mean, I had a canvasser for a local Labour Party. He just actually come around knocking my door, knocking my door, and basically, obviously just canvassing, like I said. And they did say, like, I plan to vote Labour, and I said, well, I voted Labour in the last few elections, so probably. I mean, I don't know if I will. Like I say, I have my reservations with Starmer, but although again, Cardiff Central isn't much point voting or anyone else. Yeah, Starmer, and she did admit that she understood that there was a lot of resentment towards Starmer for his dipshit centrist, well, at least appearance, at least how he's just can't seems to be not wanting to. How he's almost just coming across as right wing almost. And they basically sold it on the guise of, well, hopefully when we're in power, we can sort of prod him and get him to push him to the left and everything, which I am hoping they can do. Whether or not it is, I mean, part of me, because obviously I brought up the whole concept of overturning Brexit. At least if Labour get in, they can give us a second referendum, because not only is support for rejoining Europe at an all-time high, support for a second referendum, if not immediately, at least for the next 5 years, is pretty much overwhelming as well. And if you don't believe me, just look it up. I mean, just type in "rejoin the EU." UK rejoin the EU on Wikipedia and just get the stats for yourself. They're saying that the Europeans might be a little bit hesitant to allow us back in, although I don't know why. I mean, it benefits everyone if we do. But obviously, one thing I forgot to mention about the whole thing, and where was I going with this? Actually, no. Let me just start again. Well, at least rewind a bit. I am hoping that instead of actually being this centrist neolib that he's presenting himself as, Starmer is just putting it on just to get the press off his back, because he's so terrified of basically them doing to him what they did to Jeremy Corbyn, that he'll just won't say anything that might be even slightly remotely left wing. I'm hoping he's just basically it's all a big ruse, and as soon as he gets in, he's going to go psych, left wing policies all the way. Maybe hoping too much, but a man can dream, I guess.
Well, I've heard some people in the sources say that I look at Reddit a lot. That's usually my news source piece of advice information these days. There's a few conspiracy theories going around saying, "Oh, he might do like a nudge, nudge," but I have my doubts there. In many respects, Keir Starmer is more or less like a British Joe Biden. He appeals to kind of no one really, but people will vote for him because hey, at least he's not Trump. Which that even still that doesn't do anything. But I don't have much promise or hope.
Well, I mean, I'll take a centrist over a far right any day. I mean, I will do that. And to all his for all his misgivings and his detriments and his failures and everything, Joe Biden did end the Afghanistan war, and he did that whole bit which is going to try to cancel student debt and everything. So those are two things that can be a brownie point for him. He's not doing much else that's worth doing. I suppose he did do something to try and end the COVID pandemic, but other than that, yeah, he ended the Afghanistan war, and a lot of those on the left, actually far left, like Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, were actually giving him a thumbs up for that and saying, "Damn, that's pretty based."
Well, I do. Well, I'm a bit conflicted on that one because while he did end it, the Taliban took over, and I just
what's going to happen? Yeah, but dude,
that
was going to happen anyway. Yeah, but dude, that was going to happen anyway. That the whole Afghan government that the US set up was a complete house of cards, and the moment they pulled out, it was going to collapse, and the Taliban were going to take back over, regardless of when they left. So, what was America meant to do? Just stay there ad infinitum? I mean, sure, the military-industrial complex would love that, but ethically, it's not right.
No. With that being said, however, because of the Afghanistan withdrawal, one could argue Putin thought, haha, perfect storm. He could invade Ukraine because everyone's attention was out of the Middle East just for a brief second. That way he could strike the eastern corners of Ukraine and no one was looking, but everyone was now outraged and no one wants to do business with Russia unless you're Orban or Vucic from Serbia and several other countries in West Asia. And then came October 7th, and now no one's talking about Ukraine anymore. Everyone's talking about Israel, Gaza. And like, wow, we can't even get a break in terms of conflicts. And even though go on.
Well, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has, how spectacularly well that went for Putin and speaks for itself, really. And by the way, I'm being sarcastic in case you can't pick up on that. Just look at what a spectacular fuck up it has been for Russia. I mean, they were expecting a complete steamroll, and basically the Ukrainians under Vladimir Klitschko. Was it Klitschko? Yeah. Basically just no, was it Klitschko? Vladimir Zelensky, that was it. No, so Klitschko was a boxer. Vladimir Zelensky, that's it. Is Zelensky? Jesus Christ, I am so bad.
Volodymyr Zelensky.
Vladimir Zelensky, yeah.
And the comedian.
Yeah, I mean, they've put up such a fight, man. I mean, Russia's pretty much just given up, and they're trying. And of course, now Russian citizens were breaking their arms to stop themselves being conscripted. So yeah, that's gone about as well for Russia as it could possibly not go. And let's face it, Russia's economy is now pretty much junk status. So yeah, good luck with that. As for Israel, Gaza, well, I mean, they say the reason why Trump's probably going to win this year's election in America is because Biden's just lost the youth and Arab American vote because he won't stop supporting Israel. He won't do anything to freaking just to tell them no, don't. He won't say no, don't do that. He keeps giving them money, giving them the weapons. I mean, the Israeli army's practically on the outskirts of. I don't think it's in the outskirts of Rafah. It's pretty much invaded Rafah. I mean, it just seems they're clearly committing a genocide and doesn't seem slightly like. Pretty much all like Western leaders are just letting it happen. Well, some countries are putting a claim through to the ICC to punish Netanyahu, and Macron of France has said he supports this push. So little things, but I'll take it.
Well, unfortunately, the people who are saying we have to do a ceasefire are mostly sort of countries that are what we call like second world or developing, and then third world countries.
I know.
Well, is tied, and that's part of the problem. Really, is that here's the thing. Call me a Jew hater or an anti-Semite.
Okay.
People have said I'm Islamophobic as well. Israel already has enough money to defend themselves. Yes, geographically speaking, they are in a part of the world where they're pretty much outnumbered by countries that are predominantly Muslim. But attacking women and children and bombing even charity tents from British or like French aid organizations is not solving terrorism. That's genocide. That's violence. And here's the thing. There's going to be a lot more anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as a result of 7th of October and the Gaza war. It's going to get really ugly. This is the most frightening increase I've seen in anti-Jew and anti-Muslim violence in my lifetime. This is the worst.
Well, I don't know about the Islamophobia. That's been just rampant, God knows how long. But yeah, it is quite surprising watching the right wing in most of the world, but mostly in America, just be really go head to head on this. Because you've got in America, you've got your Ben Shapiro types who are just these hardcore neoconservative types who want to just basically bomb everyone. And of course, he's Jewish anyway, so he supports Israel no matter what, and just thinks that it's just a clash of civilizations. And yeah, he's not even trying to hide his basically anti-Arab racism. He even tweeted, Israelis like to build things, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in the sewers isn't a hard choice. Yeah, nice, Mr. Shapiro, but who cares about Mr. Shapiro? He's a dick who can't turn on his wife. On the other hand, you've got Nick Fuentes types who do not give one flying fuck about the Palestinians. Let's be clear. They are complete neo-Nazis who hate Arabs. Oh, but they really hate Jews. And Israel's identity as a Jewish state is going to basically just cause earn the scorn of these people, regardless, basically. In fact,
Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, my phone went off. Don't know if you thought that. Where was I going? You could tell a lot about the right wingers and basically how on all these fascistic Nazi types about where they consider Jews and Arabs on their racial hierarchy by where they stand on this freaking conflict.
Well, I'll put it this way. There have been some people who have said on the far left that Jews are white. I myself disagree with that statement. If you look at the history of Jewish people, because I used to grow up with Jews in North London and Hertfordshire, on the surface they may seem like, oh, they're just like a typical English or French person. But I'll tell you right now, culturally speaking, they couldn't be any different. And on the flip side, they say, oh, Arabs, they're all foreign and different. Well, some of them could pass for an Italian or Spaniard, like if you see like a Lebanese or Syrian person. But at the same time, a lot of social views and concerns of Muslims aren't quite that different from, very strong conservative types. They're against.
We do know, yes, we know that.
Womanism and stuff. It's only when it comes to issues of xenophobia and racism and probably economics, because Arabs generally tend to be poorer than Jews, statistically speaking, at least in the Western world, is why they vote left. And it's the reason why the left wing, at least the far left, has been viewed as now anti-Semite, because they're trying to court that Arab vote. And it seems to me more people are thinking that the far left is more anti-Semitic than the far right.
That's what they said about Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, in the case of George Galloway, yeah, I'm going to say that that's probably warranted because he is a complete despicable cunt. But I'm not going to say that. I don't think about Jeremy Corbyn. That's just a smear campaign. I mean, yeah, I do think that they say they throw the term anti-Semitic at people who support the Palestinians, even though I swear the Palestinians are way more Semitic than the Israelis. In fact, you said what you said about Jews being white. I mean, I don't really want to get too much into that because it's a little bit has unfortunate implications. I mean, you look at Israelis and you look at Palestinians. I mean, say obviously Israelis, or at least the majority of them, are of European descent, whereas the Palestinians are very Middle Eastern. In fact, they've even done DNA tests, and if you want to go look at the who are the ones of the descendants of the people who are there at the time of Christ, it's going to be the Palestinians, not the Israelis, who have got mostly, European DNA.
This is true. Statistically speaking, the majority of people who live in Israel are Ashkenazi Jews, which is more or less Eastern European. There is a difference. Sephardic ones are the ones of Spanish and Portuguese origin. They brought fish and chips to the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
15th century. Mizrahim Jews, they look a little bit more like me. They're kind of swarthy and Arab looking. And then the Ethiopian Jews, which are like what we call black Jews,
from Ethiopia.
And even they face discrimination and racism even within Israel. But many of them also serve.
I've heard about that.
And that sort of confuses people a little bit because they assume all Jews look like Steven Spielberg. But there's Jews who look a little bit more like me with the sort of olive complexion and the curly hair and stuff. And some of them, could look just like someone from Tunisia or Algeria. But you wouldn't know it because, people play sort of like a semantics game in of itself. And when you look at US media and stuff, the typical Jewish person generally tends to, oh, I'm like Woody Allen, I'm so nervous, I'm Sacha Baron Cohen, I'm doing the Borat, it is nice. I can make those jokes, by the way, because I used to grow up with quite a few of them. I don't know if I've seen Sacha Baron Cohen when I was a young lad, but chances are he probably popped down from near the bagel shops I used to visit. I love bagels, particularly with corned beef and pickles.
Yeah, I had one or two when I was in America. Um, yeah, I mean, like I say, I think these probably got a little off topic there in terms of the election and everything. But I suppose the Israeli Gaza conflict is going to be a big, quite a big issue. I mean, right? I think what was there? Some Labour politician named was it Faiza Shaheen, or I don't know. I can't remember exactly how you pronounce her name. Actually, I'll just quickly Faiza Shaheen. That's it. God, she's only 3 years older than me. I mean, she was currently suspended or dropped from the Labour Party because she liked a video from a Daily Show, which was just talking about the frickin' Arab-Israeli conflict, and that was dubbed to be anti-Semitic, even though it barely even took a frickin' stance on it. And of course, Daily Show was hosted by Jon Stewart, who himself is Jewish. So I mean, yeah, that's all a bit silly at the end of the day.
I mean, they recently tried kicking out Diane Abbott. Keir Starmer denies this, but it's very likely they'll boot her out simply because she said, something about Jews and the Irish travellers don't have to face discrimination as much. And then, she was linked with Corbyn, which, if he does that, because, Diane Abbott, and people hate me for this, she's done a lot for Black British people, and she's represented in Hackney. If don't do that. She's legacy. Keir Starmer, he hasn't been as long as her, or even Corbyn. So, ugh. He probably also wants to kick out Angela Rayner, and most men find her fit, even though British people hate gingers. But that's a different
But I
story.
mean, we all do that. Yeah, I mean, what was I going to say? Someone's going to say, oh yeah, I remember one person who was pro-Israel, anti-Gaza, anti-Palestinian, anti-Gaza supporter. I can't remember. Accused the the pro-Palestine protesters in America of being funded by George Soros. It's like, hang on, that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. So you're supporting Israel by spreading an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. That is just stupid.
Yeah, that one I can't get my head around, because I know what you're talking about, because people like Alex Jones and stuff, they go on about Soros-backed campaigners and globalists, and they will use in code.
I think Alex Jones is actually critical of Israel himself, albeit for different reasons. Again, he's one of those stupid conspiracy theorists who bitches about the New World Order, which is usually a code word for a Jewish conspiracy theory. So, yeah, make of that what you will. Because he's bitches out a globalist. Which, of course, is usually a code word for Jewish. So, I mean, yeah, really fucking stupid.
As well, because even surprisingly for very popular conservative, he's actually anti-Israel. He says this isn't our fight. We want nothing to do with it. At the same
Who's
time,
this again?
Tucker Carlson. He's
because he's one of those. He's a paleo conservative, much like Alex Jones. So yeah,
and he's anti-Ukraine.
Because he loves Putin.
That most people are on board with the Ukraine liberation cause. It seems to me that it's only the far right that seems to be against it. Unlike Israel and Gaza, which is very divisive, Ukraine has mostly been united. There's that small pocket of people on the far right, including Tucker, who seem to think we want nothing to do with it. Oh, it was Zelensky that provoked it. Like, oh, come on. And there has been some left-wing criticism at Ukraine because, I'll say this, they've treated Ukrainian migrants better than Syrians,
oh yeah,
Eritreans, Somalians and stuff.
Yeah, we know why. We know why.
Also, the profile's a little different because the Ukrainians that are coming are predominantly women and children. Most men have to stay and fight. It's conscription, I think, is the law there, just like it is in Finland. And especially with recent attacks that have occurred, I believe a certain infrastructure, like in Poland and Latvia, I think Finland was getting like a few threats as well. That scared the shit out of me because I have Finnish relatives as well. I used to work with people of Polish origin at a particular job at one point, but I won't disclose. So I'm quite fearful. I'm not a big fan of Eastern Europe because they are very conservative. But when it comes to fighting against Russian aggression, standing together instead of splintering like what Orban is doing, and the Slovakian guy Robert Fico, I think, at least Poland is saying, we want none of this Putin stuff. Get him out. Hungary and Slovakia and Serbia are like saying, fuck them. Putin, what did he do? I don't know anything. Like, I hope something horrible happens to Orban. He's a disgrace.
I think most people do.
Exactly. But he's very popular with Nigel Farage and people like that. Even though the Tories will probably lose, there is a chance that Reform could siphon off some of those votes. But even that, they won't, win big time because Reform UK is a thirdish sort of party.
That's what I'm hoping. It will split the right wing vote, which of course will result in Labour's landslide.
But at the same time, I'm sure people like me who were probably going to vote for Green. Yes, I admit it. I'm biased to Green Party. We could be doing that as well, but from my experience, I've always noticed that left-wing groups always seem to be a little bit more splintered than right-wing groups, because with right-wing groups, they can be quite united.
That's true. Well, there's more. That's probably why there's more left-wing parties than there are right-wing parties here. It's a very much a People's Front of Judea situation.
Oh, I mean, stuff from the Bible. Look at you.
I mean, have you've seen Life of Brian, haven't you?
I have. My apologies. It's been a while since I've seen.
So, are you the Judean People's Front? Fuck off. We're People's Front of Judea. I thought we were a popular Judean Front. No, they're splitters over there. What about Judean Popular Front? No, that's them over there. Oh, splitters. That's basically, just our left-wing groups tend to split up. I think it's because of the left tends to be more ideologically, committed in everything, whereas, of course, conservatism tends to be more of a big tent. Plus, they tend to be more concerned about personalities. As you can see with Trump in America, I mean, it's all about the personality and not about the ideology. It's just a freaking cult. Whereas, of course, there's no one like that really on the left. And I know Bernie Sanders can seem like one, but he gets taken to task at times by those on the left for his ideological, what they consider to be an ideological failing, such as his opinion on BDS. But they just like him because, generally speaking, he has an ideology that overall they do agree with. But Trump, it just gets more and more of a case of like they're just in there for the vibes. I mean, I don't think Trump even has an ideology now. And of course, one thing I want to bring up: the sentencing for Trump will be carried out a week after our election.
And that's what I'm afraid, because me, the Donald, we're going to win this election in a landslide. If you don't vote for me, I'll send my people who have been paroled after January 6th to fight the U.S. government for trying to oppress me. I don't know if that's a good Trump impersonation, but take that as you will. Don't give up your day job. But I heard that from the other day, and I shat my pants. Why? Because there's a possibility of terrorism that's going to occur off the streets and we need to build a wall and have Mexico. But just like Joe, pay for it.
It's not the best impersonation of Trump I've ever heard, but I mean, well, it's not too bad, I guess. Um, uh, but yeah, I'm so glad he was found guilty. To be fair, I mean, I'm surprised they found him guilty on all 34 charges. From what I've been hearing, I mean, the jurors are not. Yeah, the jurors. First of all, they at times they weren't sure about the ins and outs of a charge, and they had to had a request for more information to clarify. And when they got it from the attorneys and everything, they decided rather than thinking, oh well, maybe not, and everything, they said, oh no, really, oh definitely, he's guilty, and just they weren't even deliberating for that long. They just only said, yeah, yeah, he's guilty. The problem is though, I fear that he's not actually going to be sent to jail or anything because it's non-violent and he's never been in jail before, so he may actually not get jail time, which is a bit shit, really. He was hoping the judge will just throw the book at him.
Oh, they're probably thinking one or two things. Like you said, because it's a non-violent crime, he probably won't get as penalized, and he's very rich, or at least he says he is. If he were to get imprisoned, like I said with my impersonation, there's the possibility that there could be terrorism. People suck his dick big time. They think
Oh
he's
yeah, it's incredibly. There's a big risk of that. Yeah.
that someone could, if you thought someone setting themselves on fire near the courthouse was bad, wait till you see some Trump-loving nutter shooting at people or bombing a government building simply because my homeboy didn't get what's the word, clemency or expunged off his record. He's my hero. How dare you do it? I'm going to blow myself up like Al Qaeda, but for Trump. I'm fearing that's going to happen. And people are going to look at America as a nation of stupid, Trump hungry weirdos. They already did with Bush, but it's going to get worse this year.
Yeah.
Am I paranoid for thinking that? Because most Americans, well, the most people who I've met, because where I was in California, it's not a particularly progressive-minded area. It's actually quite conservative. But I'm not going to go.
I heard actually. Yeah, I've been to California twice, so yeah.
So I am quite concerned. I'm sure, where my friend from Tennessee, where he lives, they're probably just thinking this is the worst day in the universe. It's worse than 9/11. Trump, it got criminally charged, and I just think, oh. And I actually want a civil war to happen in the states to prove people's point that yes, we are divided. We will not united stand because we're divided. We will fall. I know that's probably incitement, but I want to see sort of like Antifa and MAGA fight against it, not only on the streets but on the roads and all that. Alex Garland would have to do a sequel.
I mean, yeah, but again, well, first of all, I mean, you never. Again, in Civil War, we don't really know what the ideologies of the factions are, and the fact that Texas and California are united in it together makes it particularly makes it all the more baffling. I mean, it wasn't about any sort of political statement other than the horrors of war. That I don't really want a second American Civil War, I think, because that could affect the rest of the world as well. And let's face it, yeah, America is kind of fractured, but is Britain any better? I mean, with the whole 8 years since Brexit, we've been just at each other's throats, yelling racist and gammon from one side and snowflake and libtard from the other side. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if a frickin' civil war broke out and everything. I mean, to say nothing of the Scottish nationalists, so opportunity to break away. Oh god, and then, well, don't want a situation in Northern Ireland to flare up again.
Oh, well, Northern Ireland, no. The Troubles was an awful time. Even though I'm younger than you, I do remember Omagh. and some of the attacks that even happened on uh, British soil, not Irish soil. But beside the point, I don't have that same fear about terrorism and violence inflicting on Britain's shores like I do with America. Probably is because Britain doesn't have gun ownership stated into their books like the States, and
Oh yeah.
Sunak and Starmer are viewed as this really evil person who should be killed or assassinated. I just don't see that. But you certainly see that with, you know, everyone wants to, if you talk to people on the internet and go on Reddit, you assume that everyone wants to assassinate Joe Biden. But you don't hear that about Trump because, the algorithms in place on YouTube and Reddit and 4chan on all these services that you're probably thinking, why is Mark visiting this stuff? Is he have something to hide? No, it's because the algorithms they put into place favoritize the stupidest shit. And Trump appeals to that element of the electorate where outrage sells. And I like to think I'm that, but for the left wing. I'm like a left wing Trump. Except I don't want to build a war and have Mexico pay for it. I want to build a war against the fascists and the right wing extremists and have Trump pay for it. So we lefties can stick amongst ourselves, but even at that, there'll be infighting. As we've seen, and I'm going to say this, Jews don't like Muslims, Muslims don't like gays don't like other groups, feminists don't like men.
I don't dislike men; they just don't
Don't
like
like and vice versa.
sexist men or a patriarchy.
Yes, but it's the intersectionalism that people talk about. Oh, it's woke and stuff. I think that's the thing that's going to hurt election wise because the left just doesn't seem to know how to handle divisions even from within to where it's going to come to a point where if you are Jewish, you're forced to vote Republican. If you're Muslim, you have to vote Democrat. But that's not the reality because there's
I
many
think
rich
most Jews in America are actually are Democrats.
they are.
And
And
I
in
couldn't
actual
see
effect,
Sarah. I couldn't see Sarah Silverman voting Republican, even if she does seem to overwhelmingly support Israel, which has caused her a lot of backlash. I cannot see her voting Republican.
no, I, I highly doubt it. Even um, Pete Buttigieg, he's the transportation secretary. He's well known as LGBT. He could be centrist. He could probably pass as a Republican. No one would think he was gay because he doesn't come across as a stereotype. But we're coming to a point in our lives where if you are part of an alternate lifestyle or you're of the minority, you are forced to vote Democrat. And I kind of
Well, yeah, I
understand
mean,
why right wing
well,
wants you there.
well, obviously, people on the left are going to vote for the marginalized groups are going to vote for the left. I mean, someone who's in. That's why I've never understood why Caitlyn Jenner supported Trump in America. I also found it mind-boggling that there are so many, Indians, people of Indian descent, in this country who are members of the Tory, like Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman and Priti Patel and Sajid Javid. To say nothing of what's his name, David Lammy, I think it was, who was, he's a member of the. Oh no, he's not. Who was? It's not David Lammy. Who the fuck was it?
Are you,
Oh, I
are you
just thought
talking?
Boris is a. Pardon?
I think it was like Kwarteng. Or I know James Cleverly. He's of mixed parentage. He's a Tory. And then
Yeah.
Kemi Badenoch,
Kemi, yeah. So, how do you spell his name again?
Kemi, and then Badenoc.
Found her. Yeah, found her. Yeah, she was yeah. I
But
think
you,
there was also a bloke. There was a bloke as well. I can't remember his name. I fucking remember his name. Is mind boggling my mind.
I
Anyhow,
think
man, I just find it so surprising. So many people of so many people of color or BAME, as we would call them in Britain, or as other countries might call them, BIPOC. To be fair, I don't really. We need to go over determinations, and it might get a little bit problematic if we did. Well, it's for me anyway. Became a member or supported the Tory party, the right-wing Tory party. I mean, especially going to Boris Johnson, where like they seem to become even more racism, especially they became simply a hard Brexit party. And I'm not saying every Brexiter is a racist. I don't think they all are, but to say that racism wasn't like a big part of the Brexit campaign or the Brexit discussion was the pro-Brexit campaign discussion was. I'm sorry, that would just be ignorant to say it wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of racism in the Brexit because they kept bitching about immigration, and it was mostly, immigration from outside of Europe, such as from Syria and the like.
And
I mean,
well, this
what do you?
great irony, like you said. Well, I know I made a point earlier on about if you're a POC conservative, you're more likely to be accepted than if you're a POC leftist, which is one of the reasons why they went in hard on John Boyega and called him a woke N-word, compared to Rishi Sunak, who doesn't have quite that backlash because he does play the conservative card. And that does bother me. I think Suella Braverman is one of the most disgusting politicians I'm aware of. She's essentially a white man from Kent or South Thanet in South Asian women's clothing. Has she been like a sort of white class man from like Skegness or Bolton, she wouldn't have got away with nearly as much as she's fought and said. I can't stand her. And I'm speaking as someone who is of mixed parentage, so I have some executive license to criticize Braverman and Priti Patel for them sort of kissing ass and self-hating. And this has come from someone who is self-hating myself.
Yes, I think most of us have picked that up. Actually, to be honest, Mark. By the way, the guy I was thinking of was Kwasi Kwarteng. Yeah, I have to sort of but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it. That's probably why Boris try to get so many people of color into his cabinet. So of course, when he started trying to implement these clearly racist policies, he could protect himself from racism. It's like, well, okay, but just because there's people of color doing it doesn't mean the policies themselves aren't racist. I mean, again, the racism is a system of policies that affects people based on their race or cultural construct of race. So sorry, it doesn't really fly in my book.
Well, I'll put it this way for most people. Yes, this is not appropriate for me to say, but racism is more or less class discrimination based on cultural differences. As long as there's
class
always
and race are different things, but they can sort of go together.
But they are intertwined, and that's one of the reasons why in a country that has always been as classist as it always was, you add on top of the layer of skin or colorism discrimination, and it becomes a toxic combo. It's bad enough, if you're from the North or the Midlands, you're viewed as inferior to the London elite. On top of that, try to be African Asian or of a refugee or migrant background, and probably going to get even a harder time. And try on top of that, adding the fact that you may be a gay, poor person of immigrant background, and your chances of suicide are a lot higher. It does make you wonder, and it does quite upset me. And people say you're a woke bastard. Fuck you. You're a woke libtard. I'm not. I'm just speaking the truth and the facts as it is. You should learn sometime. Sorry, I'm raising my voice, but I'm tired of people like Daily Mail and GB News having such a stronghold on the British conscience that they think the Daily Mail makes more sense than the socialist fucking worker.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've heard you riled up quite this much. Although I wouldn't worry about too much about GB News. Apparently, it's in the polls. and its viewing figures are pretty much sunk from what I've been from pretty much hearing. In fact, I'm trying to look at its viewing figures, but viewing figures, it does get. Although to be fair, it does get quite. Yeah, I mean, things like Daily Mail do get a lot more freaking traction than the what's it, Socialist Worker. In fact, they consider the left-right spectrum in this country to be the Daily Mail on one end and the Guardian and the Independent on the other. It's like, no, the Guardian and Independent are left of centre. The Daily Mail is far right. And if no one is that. There aren't any that really are that far left in this country. I mean, the fact we have to keep having these ridiculous discussions about freaking climate change and everything, which is very much a scientific fact, not only that it's happening, but it's also caused by mankind, is quite disturbing. I mean, I know we're not quite as bad as America with it, but well, we're getting there. I mean, I don't think anyone here thinks the world is 6,000 years old, but there are still too many people who still try to argue that either climate change isn't happening or it's freaking not caused by mankind. And well, I'm going to say anyone who thinks that still is a complete dick. Which I said though, the COVID denial was a horrendous problem over here for just all that time, which is just fucking stupid. Oh God, I'm running out of words to say.
Climate change and COVID and worse, if they deny the Holocaust, don't even debate or chat with them because you know you're going to lose that battle because they will tell themselves anything. Which also ties into another electoral issue that even is beyond our scope, and that's social media and censorship of that and how they regulate it. I know it sort of ties into our podcast that we usually do, but you don't even have to be on Elon Musk's stupid ass X service to see disinformation in full form. It's everywhere.
Well, they tried to freaking. Well, they tried to bloody clamp. They tried to clamp down on it on Twitter until Musk, under the freaking guise of free speech, bought Twitter and then basically just stopped it clamping down on misinformation or disinformation. Although we've still got the community notes and fact checking aspect of Twitter going on, so that's okay. But still, the amount of freaking people have been allowed back onto Twitter. I mean, okay, Trump's still off, but I don't think he wants to come back on. Carl Benjamin has come back on. Freaking Alex Jones has come back on. It's just I just forgot how peaceful it was for a while when they just weren't on there. Now we've got to see these pricks turning up on my timeline again. And it's almost as though it was as bad as it was 10 years ago.
My issue with X has been quite publicized. It largely has to do with Elon Musk being some sort of New Day Koch brothers, or Peter Thiel, who's good friends with him. These are sort of conservative, perhaps libertarian types who, as long as you go on about wokeness or whatever he goes on about, that's how you get clicks. And the algorithm sort of plays in that. So you only really tie himself to people that sort of agree with his message, which isn't really very fair, in all fairness. Twitter and X should be, like everyone else, sort of a home for anyone's opinions, really. It's not there just to appeal to you, Muskie. But at the same time, I know I've lost friends because they use X. I'm telling people don't use it, but also at the same time, don't use TikTok because it's by the Chinese government. And I know
Americans just gone and banned it.
Well, that one's still a bit in the legal limbo of sorts. If they ban it, I mean, I really don't care because I don't use it. I don't like how it's so popular with young people and stuff these days. I don't quite get the appeal behind it. I don't know if you use it. But you can explain to me.
Use it, no, I don't use it. But then again, it's more of a Gen Z thing. It's just funny how America will ban a social media app before we ban guns.
Well, well, they say they blame it on China, but I think there's something a little bit more involved going on there. And I don't care much for CCP. They're not communist, they're totalitarian, or they're capitalist in another name. But at the same time, I'm not so much worried about them banning TikTok as I'm worried about them banning books. As we've seen in multiple states like Ron DeSantis and stuff, banning genderqueer and all these in the guise of trying to protect the kids from wokeness or the queer agenda. It's like you're doing this for political reasons. You're not doing this because morality. If they banned Lady Chatterley's lover in schools, I would understand. No, they're doing it based on politics. And that's what bothers me the most.
Well, obviously they're banning stuff. Well, I mean, I don't really care about. I mean, I don't want to ban any books and everything. I won't want to ban Lady Chatterley's lover. But obviously they're doing it. They're trying to just just to stop tolerance from being promoted. It's very obvious, and of course they do that whilst all the same time trying to present themselves as free speech absolutists. Because apparently, when someone gets kicked off Twitter for saying stupid shit, or basically gets booted from Disney for saying stupid shit, you know who I'm referring to. Apparently,
Gina,
that's a pardon.
Gina Carano.
Yeah, that's a bigger infringement on free speech than literally banning books, even though free speech only applies to the government. So, I mean, and if the government isn't basically punishing you for what you said, it's not actually a uh, free speech violation. And referring what you said earlier on, actually, yeah, you really shouldn't debate people who are creationists or climate deniers or COVID deniers, because let's face it, well, to quote Mark Twain, don't argue with a fool, they'll drag you to their level and beat you with their experience. And it's true. I mean, if your mind is withheld by the twin anchors of reason and logic, and your opponent isn't, they'll just be able to argue a way around you, and you just won't be able to win.
Because at the end of the day, no one wants to prove they're wrong. And,
right.
Between us, we have arguments about, what that film should have been rated this versus that, if it was, moral versus if it wasn't. But this is, even a completely different beast because we've seen people with sort of like that level of thinking do damage. Holocaust denialism. It's probably even going to skyrocket in the next 15 years because now, the far right, they've always done it. But even they'll say the far left is going to be engaging in this sort of business because less schools are teaching about Second World War and Holocaust. And now there's this weird concern that Arab communities are going to be so radicalized because post 7th of October that they think anything related to Jews is an attack against them. Therefore, they need to have a gag ball in their mouth and be beaten to submission because they, whatnot. They can weaponize hate. In fact, even some people have said these hate speech laws that have been passed and that caused the Scottish First Minister to resign because of the controversy for that. Well, it turns out on a Metropolitan Police report that was on Channel 4 that they even said they're using hate speech laws to target minorities because they have said there was this instance of a Pakistani Muslim person holding a sign with Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak being called coconut, which is essentially a brown person who thinks he's white. And now she's being criminally charged for spreading racist banter, even though she is not white. Take that as you will. But that sounds like because she's criticizing, a major politician. That sounds like what Putin would do. You can't say war, or we'll send you to prison for 15 years. Fuck that.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit. Yeah, what I've heard about Scotland's new hate speech law does seem to be a bit over stringent. I admit that as like a hardcore leftist who, likes to try and kind of discourage hate speech. Although I am a free speech absolutist, so I don't know if I actually do believe in hate speech laws anyway. But from what I hear of this one, it can be so stringent that it could actually just that if you just said something that was a little what might be degree politically incorrect or problematic to one of your friends on an email, it could come back and it could be you could be prosecuted for it. From what I heard, anyway, I don't really know much about it, but just from what I heard. And yeah, in terms of this information, I think you mentioned January 6th, but yeah, I actually posted once on Facebook well 3 years back that saying after a year's worth of like COVID, which has been got out of control due to false claims about it, and its attack on the Capitol due to after false claims about a fraudulent election, as well as all that QAnon shit. I just hope people start to realize why it's not okay to believe in conspiracy theories. In fact, I will just see if I can find it actually, just so I can read it out properly, because I might not got the proper context. Conspiracy theories.
I do remember when the 6th of January happened, I was thinking, okay, something new's going to change with Biden. And then that shit happened. I was like, whoa. I honestly did not believe what I would just watch because I watched it live because I was in the States at the time. And my goodness. I both laughed and cringed badly at the same time because had they been left wing people doing that same shit, they would have killed and murdered all of them or arrested them en masse and got National
Oh,
Guard.
totally.
But because
If
it's
it was Black
right,
Lives if it was Black Lives Matters protesters doing that, they would have been shot on sight without a second's thought. Yeah, this is what I verbatim is what I wrote. I probably should mention this sooner, but after events in Washington recently, spurred by basis accusations of voter fraud as well as stupid QAnon bullshit, and while we're at it, the ridiculous extent of the COVID pandemic, spurred on by stupid claims of it being a hoax about masks and vaccines are about control, and on top of all this, Marjorie Taylor Greene being in the US Congress spouting her unbelievable bollocks and harassing shooting survivors, I just hope now people can understand why it is really not okay to believe in conspiracy theories.
and from that post that you wrote, did you get a lot of negative comments like saying you're a woke tard or how dare you
Not
criticize the
really.
Don?
Not really, mate. Most of my friends who actually believe people who actually believe in this have unfriended or if not even blocked me on freaking Twitter, and they sure as hell do not engage. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, I probably do live in a bit of an echo chamber, I will admit. But for those that are not part of my little inner inner circle of like-minded people, that would so we could read that.
Well, you certainly have it better than I do because I'm kind of a loner. I'm mainly only contact to you and a few others and a few family members. I don't have that luxury where I can just talk to like-minded people and they sort of agree with me on things. Also, partly it's because I'm a bit unorthodox because not only am I left wing, I believe in jobs programs and free education for the taxpayers' expense. I'm also pro firearm because hunting is a way of life for a lot of people in rural areas. If you need a gun, you do so. The far left also needs to be armed as well for the second coming, not of Jesus Christ, but of the Nazi menace. Remember, vive la resistance. And I'm also not quite as elevated on the vegan issue or um, transgender like most of the people on the left are. I've admitted to being
Definitely don't think you can
homophobic.
feed, and I definitely don't think you can feed a vegan cat food to your cat because your cat's a carnivore and everything. As for, well, no, I mean, I'm pro-trans rights, and I wish this country would get better at it. There's another way failing I see of Starmer and the like, but again, I'm hoping just putting that off to keep the centrist libs off his freaking back because they are really not getting on board with trans rights and everything. I mean, to say enough about J.K. Rowling, and she won't go up, but also the likes of Ricky Gervais and Richard Dawkins are not very very pro-trans. What the fuck was I going to say?
But put it this way:
I don't. I also I'm not really a huge fan of hunting it. I think I did support the fox hunting ban when it came in 2004. I do not support it being repealed because I'm sorry, killing small animals for entertainment is just a sign of a psychopath, and you don't need to fucking kill foxes. I mean, they say it's like conservation, but conservation of what? Just because they kill one occasion, one or two of your chickens. I mean, sure, it's annoying, but really don't think it's warrants going out and murdering them. And if you're doing that, you could probably do it in a slightly more humane manner. But no, I mean, they just clearly seem to enjoy the idea of murdering animals, everything. And I do. No, I'm glad we have gun control in Britain. You know, I mean, rather than America, I really wouldn't want to live in a world where you just go outside, and you don't know if you're going to be caught in a bloody mass shooting. And this idea about, of course, that a lot of gun nuts in America say, "Oh, I'm going to use my guns to overthrow the government if they get too radical." It's like, dude, your government is the most powerful government in world history, and you think you're going you overthrow them using your AR-15. I mean, if they wanted to, they could. I mean, Bill Burr did a freaking skit on this, but I'm going to paraphrase it as much as I can. We could get some geek who can't do a single pull-up from about like 3,000 miles away in a bunker somewhere to just type in a few coordinates on a computer and get a predator drone to vaporize you in your house while you're busy eating your freaking cornflakes in the morning. I mean, they could do that. You're bringing your freaking guns to a drone fight. I mean, I really don't think you're really quite equipped out for this. Plus, I think the whole concept of right to bear arms is rather anachronistic, if you ask me. I mean, this is an ancient Sparta.
Well, and also we live in a more sort of metropolitan world. It's globalized, neoliberal, which is a word I throw about for anything. But in all fairness, it's well, in his case, I'm going to overthrow the government. No, you can't. There's a lot more people who will kill you before you kill them. Also, the military usually has a lot more power than just one individual. It's one of the reasons why coups in Africa and Middle East tend to be a lot more common than just sort of lone wolf soldiers. So if Trump thinks he can just, pull up an AR-15 and start shooting at Democrats and rhinos, Republicans in name only, because they didn't vote for him, that's a little bit unrealistic. He would need a big army. It's an army to do something like that. And that's kind of what they tried doing on the 6th of January, but even that sort of failed because some of them looked like they were just in it just for the thrill, not necessarily to want to kill and assassinate people or hang Mike Pence. Like one guy, he dressed up like Jamiroquai. I used to be a big fan of that musician. He dressed up like some Viking. And then another person
Yeah, the
took
Q
his
shaman guy.
on Nancy Pelosi's office. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, but to be honest, though, you could say, Market, yeah, that's what happened this time around. You're more sort of worried that next time round, if Trump was to lose the election or Trump gets incarcerated or anything, some round, it'll be far worse. I mean, they may come actually with weapons and then actually come up with much bigger intention of actually trying to stage a coup. I mean, again, good luck with it being successful and everything, but fucking still, man.
No, but that's the thing that frightens me the most because unlike Biden or Sunak, Starmer, Trump's people are very loud, very vocal, and like you said, very cultish. If you say one bad thing about him, you're dead. That's one of the reasons why I can't talk to Republicans anymore because all of them seem to suck his dick. I can't stand it.
Yeah,
Even
no, we've established that ages ago. I mean, there's just absolutely, it's just ridiculous how like it is just a complete cult, and yeah, you just can't talk to these people. So it's no wonder basically they're becoming more and more polarized and everything.
even the
I mean, pretty much.
can't talk to as much anymore nowadays because they're even getting more sort of Trump sounding, even though they're against the government. Even they're starting to sound a bit Trumpish with, oh, who says we can't stop the abortions or the illegal migrants? Like, I thought you guys was not supposed to be on anyone's side, but you now sound like a Trumper. Like, fuck you, Ron Paul lot. Sorry.
Oh, Ron Paul. Yeah, well, I don't
I,
care much for that.
I
I don't
used to
care
be
much for that shit.
because he's a bit wacko, like Oliver Stone, but like, my opinions have changed over the years. Like
Well,
I said,
Ron Paul wasn't too bad during the Bush years because he was actually against the Bush administration, actually against the Iraq War and the Patriot Act and everything, which was refreshing. Of course, then in the Obama years, and while Obama didn't do a huge amount to downplay the war in the Middle East and everything, but we did pull up Iraq. Yeah, I mean, he also tried to bring in a form of healthcare in America, and flipping Ron Paul was against that. And of course, he reminds you that, oh yeah, Ron Paul was just because he's a more libertarian Republican, he also has like stupid views such as opposing taxing the rich, opposing universal healthcare, and opposing gun control, which, you know, to me, someone from outside America just seems ridiculous.
in all fairness, Ron Paul is from a part of countries like Texas, which he represented. And he's of the more sort of what we call right-wing anarchist, anarcho-capitalist variety of libertarian. Well, in other countries, libertarian means left-wing anarchist or rabble-rouser of sorts, like the moneyless man. He would qualify as like a voluntarist or anarcho-leftist. You just don't hear about them because the corporate media will not finance them. But one thing I will say, though, I'm going to go to hell for this. Russia Today, before they got cancelled, actually did give a platform to far left types as long as they criticized America. But if you criticize the Kremlin, oh, you're in trouble. But, RT had a shitload of problems. The Putin kissing did not work in my favor, but I did like them helping out left wing voices when CNN and Fox couldn't do so. Am I wrong to say that?
Well, I mean, I can see where you may be coming from. Obviously, Fox isn't going to elevate any left wing voices. Fox News is pretty much what GB News try to be over here. It's almost like a right wing propaganda machine. It's certainly not doesn't. It certainly has no business being called a news fucking program or news station. CNN, typical centrist neoliberal bullshit. Obviously not massively right wing of Fox News, but it's not exactly. Still doesn't really speak truth to power and everything. And it's all very good saying that, but Russian Today really just promotes conspiracy theories and bollocks like that. Pro-Putin conspiracy theories. I mean, it's no wonder that Russia today is probably massively pro-Trump and all that. I mean, and of course they would give more and also pro-Brexit. I mean, they definitely give a lot of airtime to people like Nigel Farage and George Galloway. So, I mean, fuck Russia Today and fuck everything about it. So, I mean, yeah, that's all I've got to say about that.
This was in a previous life. I don't watch it. I haven't, at least in 3 years. With Ukraine and stuff, I just thought, fuck them. The only news sources I really follow, to be honest with you, is TLDR, which is on YouTube. Quite centrist, if at best centre left, but you can learn a lot about the world, I'll tell you that, particularly about UK and EU policies. And what's that other one? I like Vox. Now this is pretty good. Jubilee, that's not really a news site. That's more just watching people debate about Israel versus Palestine or transgender versus straight people, that sort of thing. I don't know. For you, I'm guessing it's a little bit different. I mean, I've tried looking at Guardian, and I always check their film stuff. I find the Guardian is not as left wing as people make it out to be.
It isn't. It wasn't exactly pro freaking It's not exactly was that supporting Corbyn? It didn't exactly. I mean, sure, it may be an anti-Brexit. That's fine. It doesn't seem to be promoting. But how many times was the last time we read the Guardian? It's not exactly big in the whole trans rights thing. I mean, doesn't seem. It is centre left, and that's a that's better. I mean, I remember I've seen read articles of it opposing 24-hour drinking and sometimes even agreeing with Mary Whitehouse. So it's like, well, hang on, that's not a left wing position to take. You may as well just be reading the Daily Mail.
I'm against 24-hour drinking. You know, people don't need to
I'm
be
not.
sucking pints at 6 a.m. in the morning. Like,
We can
jeez.
do that in Germany.
Or having pawn shops near schools. Like, you don't need to be doing that.
Well, I'm not saying you should
I'm
be
a-
doing that and everything. I mean, maybe you shouldn't have pawn shops near schools and everything, but I mean, that doesn't mean pawn shops shouldn't exist in Gent at all. I mean, I remember there was one quite close to the for college I used to go to in Filton. Not that makes much odds. Not that makes any odds anyway, because again, pawn's all online. Hmm. But I mean, probably get a little off topic right now.
It all
I suppose
pertains to policy, you know, and also the media, because the news has almost everything to do with how we sort of perceive the world as it is. You know, growing up, we got many publications for the papers. I got the Times, which explains why I used to get those Alan Partridge DVDs, The Sun, News of the World. But the one I always used to keep, trying to get is the Independent, because they had like a few CDs and classical music, or like a CD of the latest alternative rock and Britpop songs from the 90s. It makes me nostalgic, and it shows I'm a true millennial, although a younger one. Sorry, but
no,
I'm
no
guessing
worries.
when you were growing up, you were mostly reading like Guardian or
I
Observer.
wasn't reading I wasn't reading newspapers when I grew up, and to be honest, I didn't really understand it much. But anyway, the only
I like the
I
best.
remember growing up. My dad always reading the Daily Telegraph, but now we don't somehow have that in my house. We tend to more have the Times. But my dad's always been a Tory supporter. My mum, I'm not entirely sure. She doesn't like the Tories. I think she's generally used to support Lib Dems, which is weird because she's the only one in my house that's even religious. In fact, she's a regular attender of a local church, which is weird because the Lib Dems have always appealed to like the more atheist community. Although Labour have as well. But I mean, both Labour and Lib Dems have a fair share of atheists in their ranks.
Well, I want to hold a thought there, because I know it's a personal matter because you're family. But have there been moments where the political identities of your siblings and your parents come into a bit of conflict? Because I know it has for me.
Times. But at times, yeah, we try not to talk about it too much and everything because again, don't want to get too heated. But I mean, yeah, because like I say, my dad does support the Tories. My middle brother, at least he used to support the Tories. I don't know if he does anymore. He doesn't seem to be too happy with them. Or I don't know who he does support if he doesn't. My oldest brother support. He's slightly more left leaning and everything. He used to be more of a dipshit libertarian in his younger years, but I think he's moved away from that. I don't know who does support. I don't know if he supports Labour or Lib Dems. It's one of the two. He doesn't support Tories. I know that. And again, my mum's a bit on the shelf. I mean, she says she's no Tory fan, but I've never known. No, I know she did not like Corbyn, that for sure. In fact, I think I was the only person in my family who did. But then again, I think I'm the only person in my family that also supports getting rid of a monarchy. To say nothing of like disestablishing the Church of England. That's kind of why I supported Corbyn, actually. So we do have a few conflicts and everything, and of course, my mum being a Christian, whereas the rest of us being atheists, brings us to into conflict with each other at times as well. But not as much as you'd think. We tend to avoid too much about. So yeah, we do have like the political discussions at time to time, but nothing too extreme.
I'll put it this way, in case Mrs. Bavister is listening or watching. She probably will get along with me because I'm a bit unorthodox in my opinions, but I am a bit on the rude side, and I would like to apologize to you and your family if your son Robert has said some things that you should never talk about in the dinner table. So my apologies to Mr. and Mrs. And hopefully they don't sue me for this podcast and some of the others like we did, like the porn one. Like, please don't.
I
But
really don't think that they. Well, A, they wouldn't be able to sue you anyway, and B, and if they could sue, I don't think they would. I don't. To the best of my knowledge, no one in my family's ever sued anyone. So I mean, they're just not the kind of people that would do that.
well, I'm a bit paranoid like that because I don't want to hurt people's feelings, even though it seems like I do. But I will tell you on a more personal matter, and hopefully this won't get me into trouble because some of people spy on my work if I tell them not to. My father is more liberal than my mother. I know that almost never happens in most families, but take that as you will. We're all more or less left wing, anyways. But my mother is a little bit more conservative, more capitalist friendly than me and my father. But I can't stand my father. Related to the divorce. Because even though he is, much more left wing than me and my mother, he has issues, and sometimes he contradicts himself. So, that's also a battle in of its own right. And I'll tell you one thing: don't get married, don't have kids, because
I
either
don't think
you
I'm ever likely to.
have elements when you get older, and that boy, when he turns 16 and tells Mr. Robert Bavister, "Fuck you, Dad! You're such a twat," because he thinks you're some sort of hippie while thinks Andrew Tate is God. I don't want that to happen for you. No.
Oh, anyway, I don't think it's likely to happen anyway, so it makes no odds one way or the other. I mean, I suppose we should probably get back on track. I mean, I don't know, because again, we got two. We've got two elections this year. The one one in Britain, which is next month. The one in America, which is the end of the year. God damn it, America! Why the fuck do your elections last so long? Jesus Christ! Uh,
Well,
now it looks like currently Trump's going to fricking win the next election unless he's incarcerated before then, which here's hoping he would be, but never know. He's still got 3 more criminal trials to go through, and let's face it, having been found guilty on this one's I don't want to say anything about next ones, but I can't imagine he's going to get off. He's got another. What's 94 minus 33? 16, 60. Oh, wait, and a second. 60, 57. It's another 57 more freaking 7 more criminal accusation, criminal charges against him. I don't think he's going to get not guilty in all of them. So, especially not because he's found guilty on all these counts. But so anyway, got that one going on there. But if he's not in jail, he's probably going to win again because Biden's not ever going to fuck his chances. We've got
we've got
the election this year, and hopefully it's going to end. Does optimism look like it's going to end the 14 years of Tory rule, which I will be ecstatic about when it happens because fuck, I've had my fill of them. 14 bloody years, and this country's basically just sick man of Europe again. I walk around Cardiff, you see enough bloody homeless people on the streets. It's just indicative of a failure of the system. And that's to say nothing about a clusterfuck of Brexit. Hopefully, he'll be able to do something to fix it. I don't know what Starmer's going to do and everything, but we can always replace Starmer later on. But yeah, hopefully end austerity and all that.
Well, I have my doubts on that because the damage is already done. But like I want to see a return to the welfare state. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit in tax, but you won't have to worry about student debt when you go to university. Study for like accounting or hell, even history, like Tom is doing. I hope Tom has a bursary because when he graduates and he can't get a proper job, he's going to be in for a rude awakening. Even with that scale, have to go 10% goes to your repayment, but I would prefer it be free again because I'm someone who has about 17,000 USD or more in student loan debt. So I know what it's like. Even though it's a lot less than most people, I wish it never happened. And if I thought about it, I wish I could have done university all over again. And that's what makes me suicidal at times, was I wish I could have done different. And I know I sound like a broken record, but that is one big issue. Education policy, particularly for millennials and Gen Z, that really needs to be fixed. We'll see if Keir Starmer follows by his promise, but Labour got rid of free tuition in the late 90s to where even you, because you went to university in 2003, you were fucked, but it was cheaper back then for you than it was for me.
Well, I mean, I was on I got my student loan for student loan company, which was $3,000 a year, which I cannot believe how I was sorry, it was $3,000 a year anyway. But I mean, that's that was it is probably still. I don't think I've still haven't paid off my student loan as of yet, because I don't think I have anyway.
Discuss that in open topic. That's quite private. But yes, that's one thing I wish they would solve. You can raise wages all you like, but you also have to solve with the cost of living and inflation issue. I think some of that.
Well, you need to raise wages along the lines of inflation, so they can actually counteract the cost of living. And the cost of living has gone fucking through a roof. I mean, just when I do an order for delivery on bloody Iceland now, it's like the amount I can actually get for my. Usually, I do it within 35 to 40 quid and everything, so I can do them to get a free delivery. The amount I'm actually getting for that 40 odd quid is shrinking every time. I swear, it is getting disturbing.
My grandmother's having that same issue with Tesco. She does the ordering of the groceries, and even that's creeping up as well. To where we must just get store brand stuff these days, and usually don't do no more than 2 or 3 meals a day. I've even had to cut down myself too, and no fun. I know it seems like, oh, you're fortunate because we live in the West, but in all fairness, Britain is expensive. And here's the thing that really upsets me: transport. Trains.
Oh Christ!
Ridiculous.
Yeah, we need. That's one thing Corbyn said he would have done. Would have been freaking renationalise the railways, which of course got privatised under fucking New Labour, no less. And now fucking train travel is like fucking most expensive in Europe. It's fucking ridiculous, man.
No, you're not alone, because when I tried to meet you up in Cardiff, if I took the train, which would have, been about 2 or an hour and a half less than using the bus, I would have had to spend about 72 quid. And that's not even with a rail card. 72 quid from the train station in Kent. I'm not going to describe where I was actually at, to Cardiff. You got 72 quid to go on a train? I don't. So, no, that's not going to work. Sorry.
It is
to fix on rail and even buses, because bus passes, at least in Canterbury, 9 quid day pass. You go to France, they got day passes for like €3, almost as high as like €7, much less than in the UK. And in America, they don't even have bus passes because everyone drives cars. Even though petrol is a lot cheaper in America, it has been increasing, particularly in California, where it's almost like about $5.30 something per gallon. So people feeling the pinch in both countries. But in the UK, I would say it's worse, in part because of the Brexit, in part because we're a smaller island, in part because Tories don't seem to understand if you want to win respect, you have to win a working class vote. And yes, they may seem they get it right on immigration or wokeness, but you can't be
Right.
cutting social
Well, I don't
services.
think they.
That's
Well, I don't
poverty.
think they. Well, I don't think they do anyway, because I think, let's face it, the whole anti-wokeness thing is just a big distraction. There's a reason why the Republicans got absolutely draxed in the 2022 midterms. They focused too much on the anti-wokeness stuff. People were just saying, we don't give a shit about anti-wokeness. We don't give a shit about CRT in schools or about trans people actually, or where a trans people goes to piss. Can we just, like, pay our freaking bills, please? I mean, it's actually like substance. Basically, Republicans don't actually have any substantive policies, and they just lean into the the culture war, because that's all they've got. And now it's like they've come out to bite them in the ass. Even Donald Trump said, "Look, you can't just lean this anti-wokeness. You don't even know what wokeness even is," and it's true. I mean, they, can people even define what woke is nowadays? I don't think they can. I mean, they're just basically trying to use it as a catch-all term for stuff they don't like. Especially when you can see what some boomers post online, just to say, "This is before wokeness." It's like, what the fuck has that got to do with wokeness? As for immigration, I don't think many people actually care about immigration too much. Immigrants have always been too much of an easy scapegoat for people's woes, when really it's the fault of the rich and the powerful and the elites. Uh, the problem is, though, let's first pass the post that we have in Britain, as well as the electoral college in America, which is also shit because it crushes popular vote. I mean, it, make, it makes us probably quite a centre-left population in all, when you actually look at it. Unfortunately, constantly be governed by a freaking at least centre-right, if not outright right-wing, government, because it just skews the supposed vote count in the favour of centre-right parties, even if they didn't actually go that way. Again, I mean, if you had proportional representation, the outlook of Parliament would be completely different. And
Well, I believe you're right onto something, because some of our other Commonwealth brothers, like Australia and New Zealand, already seem to have that sort of electoral policy, proportional, rep, handled a lot better than other countries. I think Canada uses FPTP as well, which explains why so many Canadians are against Trudeau and want that
France, of
collegiate.
course, for its presidential system, doesn't use an electoral college.
This is true, but at the same time, in France, while there's so many parties, they ultimately rounded up to the two candidates that won the biggest votes. And because I've got a
Yeah,
friend
Le
who's a
Pen.
Sec-
Well, Le
and
Pen's never got. Well, Le Pen's never managed to win an election, though, and they haven't even come close to winning the election when they actually are in the final round.
this is true. I mean, although she did increase her vote share, but if she does get in 2027, very likely she probably will win. I think a large part of it has to do with economic malaise. Usually, when times are tough, people like to go for the party that's the complete opposite. And then in France, you have that element of xenophobia and fear of Muslims and Arabs, and that suddenly plays into the whole. They're coming over on boats. They're trying to rape your white women and trying to turn our Catholic country into a nation of Salafists. And because France has the issue of its colonial legacy, particularly in Algeria, you get that element where everything seems quite fractured, to where I have to dress whenever I go to France um, posh. I even did it when I was in Cardiff. I dressed posh because in Britain you don't want to look like an Asbo, but in France you don't want to look like someone whose name Amadou or Tariq or Mohammed. People are quite funny. Class and race, it's everywhere. And like you said with the woke
Yeah.
thing, I'm going to educate the public on this one. Woke is a noun. Oh, I shouldn't sign up. Never mind. Woke is a word of Afro American vernacular. It means to stay aware of social issues around you. Wake up. Right wing people know what woke means, but they call it under a different name. They call it the black pill or the red pill. What incels use it, but it's the same thing. Being aware of the world around you. it's the semantics, and people are caught up on that. And in all fairness, woke is not to do with feminism or LGBT, or because someone said we need to have socialized healthcare. It's mostly in terms of race and ethnicity.
Well, yeah, it came out of BLM. I mean, I remember when it came about, but then it soon just got hijacked by the right and the gammons and the chuds, who just tried to basically use it as a replacement for political correctness or social justice warrior, as was the term that was basically used at the
And
time.
that's the issue I've got, is because it's been sort of demystified of its original meaning, that it now has no power. Anytime you say that word, everyone will just think, oh, no, 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 no. I want nothing to do with that. Don't even bring it up. I want to reclaim the word, just like some organizations have reclaimed bitch, because I know it's a word, means dog, but then it also became a word to denigrate woman. But I've even heard women use the word bitch to say, I'm a bad bitch. Don't mess with me. We need to do that. The N word. Some people have reclaimed it. Because if you think I'm inferior or just a trigger, well, see, here it is. I'm a trigger with an attitude, straight out of Compton.
Oh yeah, well that was them reclaiming it. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But I
let's
mean,
think about the
obviously,
semantics.
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that was the case, and we're probably getting a bit off topic. Uh, so yeah.
If you look at
Actually,
newspapers,
have
every
we
every if you look at the newspapers, all you see is immigration, 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 or Brexit, the economy, immigration, immigration, immigration. It's almost like a broken record. Boats, migration, Brexit. It's like, have they got enough better to do? It's what sells papers and
well, yeah.
headlines.
I know. Well, of course, it's fear mongering. It always has been. It's just basically sensationalism to get more attention. I mean, obviously everything's okay in the world. No one listens, and so
Yeah, it
yeah. I
makes
mean,
me
that's a
nostalgic.
tale as old as time, really. Is there anything else we need to any other issues we need to address right now? Because I'm starting to worry if we might have might have gone a bit over schedule and everything, or it might be dragging us on a bit too long.
I think we have, like with the action movies one, this is probably past our due, or whatever the word is. Like, we've went above the time limit, but vote green or face your own suicide. And same with the US election. Go out and vote, because very likely the man in orange will come and send his goons to assassinate and kill you. And they might rape your wife and daughter if they're not careful. And also check out my documentary coming soon, which I hope to release before the UK election. Wake up and smell the coffee. It's been banned on YouTube, but hopefully you can watch it on Dailymotion or Vimeo, one of those. Yeah, have any last thoughts? I won't say any more.
Um, well, I mean, make sure you vote on July the 4th. Obviously, have your voter ID here, because those cunts in the in Parliament passed a law that says you need voter ID now. That's something that Labour could basically overturn when they get in. Not that I suppose they will, but they really should do, because it's a real fascist thing to have voter ID laws. Please, yeah, please make sure you do turn out. Please do what we can to get these parasitic, fascistic, oppressive, leech, freedom-hating bastard hunts out of power. They've been there too long, and they've brought nothing good into this country. If they're in here any longer, not very longer, this country's going to just go down the tubes and just go to the dogs. And there'll be no future left for Britain. Yeah, so please get out and vote on July the 4th. And I'm not going to tell you to vote for, because if I tell you to vote for someone, you'll probably just vote for the opposite just to spite me. But please get out, vote, and let our voices be heard on the July the 4th. And, well, peace out, y'all.